welcome to the second episode of the podcast series where we speak about the education industry and its insights. And I'm Amma, and here today with us we have David Matthews, the Executive General Manager of Navitas.
Thanks
Hi,
for having
David.
me. Hi, Amma.
So, David, today we are going to talk a bit about a crucial topic which is very important to students out there.
Yes.
About the career opportunities and the industry insights. So I would like to ask you, what makes you the ideal person to talk about this topic with us?
Great question. I've been involved in international education for over 30 years now. That's a long time. And I've worked in lots of different countries. So I've worked for many years out of the US, Canada, Australia, of course. Worked in Malaysia, worked in Sri Lanka. We're here now.
Right now.
And also some, parts of working in Singapore, Indonesia, and other countries as well. So I guess I've been around. I've worked with students all around the world.
So you have a very vast global experience.
Yes.
And makes
yes.
you the ideal person to talk about this with us today.
I think so. I've seen students from all different walks of life, all have different interests, all have different goals. So I think I've got a good background to talk about it.
Perfect, David.
Yes.
So, so I personally feel that ECU as a university opens up doors for students to pursue a career that they love to do in the future, which will open doors to be a global asset. So what do you think about that?
I guess we go back to why did we start this campus?
Of course.
Why did we start Edith Cowan University in Sri Lanka? And it wasn't about we want students to go to Australia to study. We looked at how do we build an Australian university or an international university with all the benefits, the quality that we have, and the opportunities we give students. How can we build that same environment here in Sri Lanka? But it's for our students to look at how do we get them ready for the opportunities in the world. And it's not just about can they work overseas, but what are the opportunities in Sri Lanka as well. We know that Sri Lanka's been through a few challenging years, and we know that a lot of students have walked in with their parents and they say, how do I go overseas and study overseas and work overseas? But a lot of the time they actually don't understand what are the job opportunities in Sri Lanka as well. We know at the moment we get lots of companies talking to us saying, we want young people, there are so many opportunities in the growth in Sri Lanka, how do we support that? So really what we looked at here is how do we help Sri Lankan students have all those opportunities?
So you mean in the lookout for moving out of the country, pursuing a global career, people actually miss out growth opportunities that's right here in Sri Lanka, which could make you a global asset. That's what you mean, is that
I think it's how do you open up all those opportunities?
Right.
So when our students come in with a fixed idea, we want to support them with that idea, but we also want to open up their mind and their ideas about what are all the opportunities. It might not just be about going overseas, it might be also what's local, or it might be starting your career locally and then progressing internationally, or it might be, back and forth.
there are so many ways to do it.
That's right. So I think for us, it's about how do we support students in that,
Yes.
and not just the parents, the students. It's also the parents,
How do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Sometimes parents will come in and they'll say, I want my son or daughter to go to Australia because there are no opportunities here in Sri Lanka. I want them to go over there and do that. And we say, what do you mean? They say, well, and I think they've had a bit of a fixed idea from their experience,
right.
And they're not always linked in to what are the opportunities here. So for us, it's sometimes a discussion. And of course, we also know that sometimes mum and dad and their son or daughter actually have different ideas. Yeah,
So there's a conflict there.
There is a conflict. So sometimes part of our job is helping the family have that discussion about these are all the opportunities, what is right for your son or daughter.
Right.
There's that traditional idea that I want my son to be an accountant or I want my daughter to do this or whatever. where their passion and what they're good at might be in a different area to what their parents are thinking. So sometimes, at the end of the day, it's their decision, but it's our job to help them understand what are those opportunities.
Right. I think you made it very clear to me. It's
Okay.
very clear now.
That's good.
But I think it must be very interesting for you to be helping out people. You also get the opportunity to direct people towards their future, right? And that really gives you satisfaction as well.
Oh, it's huge. In my role, 'cause I
Yes.
travel a lot, I bump into students in different countries.
And they recognize you everywhere, and
They
it feels
recognise
good,
me.
right?
Yeah, and they say, "Oh, this is what I'm doing." I must admit, sometimes I don't know who they are. I forget. They say, "Hi, David. How are you?" And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
"I recognise your face. I can't remember your name." And then they tell me, and then once they explain who they are and what they've done, then I remember. But yeah, it's great. Actually, when we started this campus, we wanted to let people know that ECU was setting up this campus here.
Right.
And so I was also looking at how do I let people know about this campus. And so I talked to my colleagues in Perth and said, let's look at our alumni, our Sri Lankan alumni, find out what they're doing now. And I remember every night I would go home from work. It sounds a bit sad, but I'd get onto my computer with my cup of coffee, and I would go through the list of alumni, and I'd go onto LinkedIn. I'd look them up on LinkedIn, and I'd find them. I'd say 2/3 of the people were on LinkedIn, the third I couldn't find, and then I'd send each of them a personal message, say, "Hi, this is me. This is what we're doing in Sri Lanka." And it was amazing how many of them wrote back to me and said, "Oh, it's so great to hear. I now live in Canada, or I now live in Adelaide, I now live in Germany, all over the world." And I'd say probably out of the 1,500 alumni that I communicated with, which took a long time, as you can imagine.
One-to-one, right? So it
One
takes
to
time.
one.
Yeah.
They didn't all answer me, but a lot of them did. I found that probably 40% were here in Sri Lanka and 60% were in all over the world. So when I contacted all these alumni, it was really interesting. We had, they're all over the world. They're in Canada, Australia, of course. We had them in Holland, in Germany, the UK, the Middle East. They're all over the world. I was really surprised how diverse they were. A lot of them, probably 40% or more, were actually in Sri Lanka. But a lot of them contacted me saying, either I'm thinking about coming back to Sri Lanka, I wonder what the opportunities are
They
like.
want to come back and work here?
They want to come back,
Yes.
yeah, because they miss the environment they've grown up in, and also that they're always looking at what are the opportunities in
Sense of home.
Exactly. Food.
Yes,
of course.
definitely.
So that was really interesting. And
So David, another thing I want to know. So when you reached out to them also, I think they are not all from the same industry or something like that. They're in different industries, right? So what do you think in terms of education? It is important that, in my opinion, I think it's very important that there should be diversity in options in education for them to fly to where they want to. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, even if someone studies a particular degree, does not mean that their job will be in that degree, from their degree, or their career will be in that as well. We know that, especially young people these days, they change careers quite often. So really, we look at, well, how do we get them ready for that? I mean, even myself, I started as an accountant.
Right.
Then I became an English language teacher, traveling the world teaching English.
It's like experience in different fields, right?
Different fields, yeah. And so really when we're teaching them, we know they're doing a certain subject, but we also think about, well, how do we get them ready for all those opportunities in the future? So, we have students who study commerce who'll be working in all sorts of industries around the world.
So it's
all sorts
important
of
that they
jobs.
have exposure from all kinds of parts, programs. So I think when deciding the future for a student, so now that you have shown to us the diversity in options for students globally, I think it is the ideal thing that they choose a place that offers all those kinds of industry entrance programs, right?
That's right.
What do you think about that?
So when we look at, also when we set up this campus, we were very conscious that we want it to be very student-centred. And the reason we want it student-centred is because We know from research that students learn better when they're involved in their learning and they take responsibility for their learning. We don't want students to walk into a lecture hall with 200 or 300 students, sit there, listen, take notes, walk out. We want them
The
to be
individual attention is always important to improve your skills.
individual attention, but also not just between the teacher and the student, but
Right.
students to students.
Among students.
So the way we teach, it's very project oriented. The teacher will do some theory with the students, and they'll get into start looking at how do you practically focus on that, and that might be in IT labs or in the biomedical labs, but even in commerce as well, about some marketing or business plan strategy or something. But they're working groups together with the academic staff walking around supporting them. And by doing that, they're building their soft skills. So they're building skills in how they work with people, in how they take different roles in a group, so leadership roles or support roles, or but also they're learning how to actually do things, because we know that once they go out into the workforce, they need to start doing things.
Right.
And
so by all that, what do you mean? You mean that ECU offers it all in one place?
that's what we try to do. Yes, that's what we focus on.
That's amazing to hear.
And also other things in the campus. You know, sports is a big part here, and the sports aren't just to go out and play sport. It's about teamwork, team building. We have different clubs and societies where students take leadership roles. We have students who work with staff and how to make the campus better. So it's all about students being involved and learning these skills, not just from what they're doing in the classroom, but being a part of the community, which the skills they're going to be needing. I mean, I know in my career, I've interviewed thousands and thousands of candidates and hired a lot of people for different roles in different countries. You can tell pretty quickly if someone's the right person for the role. Have they got the right attitude? Have they got the right thinking, the
Yes.
mindset? Are they open to new ideas and are they innovative? It's not just about being able to tell the story. Are they genuine about that?
Yes.
And so we want to build genuine students who are great communicators.
Thank you, David. That's very insightful, actually. I think that's one thing students and parents have to think about. If you are aiming high, you have to go to a place that gives you the highest standards and the opportunities to fly high, right?
Oh, definitely.
That's amazing.
Yes.
Thank you for your insights very much.
Okay, no problem. Great to be here.
And I hope you enjoyed that episode. Hoping to see you in our next episode where we discuss about the education industry and its insights.